watching those three knobs at the top. That's how I interact with this weird little patch called Nice Hallucination. I twist my three knobs on my synth in real time, and multiple parameters respond, adjusting the tone, the speed, and the complexity of the random music playback that you're hearing. That's right. Well, thanks for tuning in again. Broadcasting live during my lunch break and simultaneously casting on YouTube as well, I think. Seems to be the most optimal way to do things. Since it's hard for me to track who's on Twitch in real time or respond to people there, I'm going to double up and drop these on recordings of these streams on YouTube as well. Hope that's cool with everybody. So it's a Monday morning here. We just had a nice little bank crash over the weekend, which is good for those of us holding Bitcoin, but I'm not going to get into that on the channel right now. I just came here today to not overthink it. You know, when I've thought about starting this modular stream so many times, and thought about, like, you know, going through each of the different modules here that you see on the screen and what each one does, and you know, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to start that way. I might give more of a tutorial sometime in the future, but for now I just want to improvise on the modular because that's what it's best at, giving you a blank starting point and letting you go in whatever direction you want to go in. So, without further ado, let's do that now. Loading a new patch. Okay, and we're back to silence. Well, I can't say that I have zero plans in mind. Something I wanted to do today was demonstrate something for a buddy of mine, a guy named Troy. Troy has a modular synth, and he bought a module called the 4MS Ensemble Oscillator. And when I heard how it worked, it reminded me a lot of a module that is available here in the Nord Micro Modular, which, to be honest, doesn't have a huge number of options. It's not as, even something like braids in the Eurorack world would give you a lot more oscillator options than the Nord Micro Modular does. It's actually kind of traditional in that sense. Let's look at what they offer for a second. Master oscillator doesn't make a sound, it just uses a control device. A, B, and C would be what you'd expect. See here, pulse, sawtooth, triangle, and sine wave. These are just, you know, typical subtractive synthesis oscillators. If B and C are just slightly stripped down, so if you're running low on resources, you don't need all those functions. You can use B or C instead of A. And they have a bunch of them called slave here, A through E. Those are really just the same thing. For example, slave A has 4 waveform types, but it's missing some of the functions of the other ones. So really, A, B, C, and slave A through E are all traditional. In the non-traditional, we have the spectral and the formant. Formant will make you like vocal sounds. Spectral osc is just a weird digital one. And then we have slave FM down here, which of course has an important function. We heard the 2 different percussion oscillators in the first stream, and noise is what you might expect. So here's the last guy, and as I said, the one I wanted to demonstrate today, the sine bank. Look at the percentage of processing power that it uses. It's by far the highest here, at 17%. Only the drum sound is close at 12. When you compare it to, something like OSC at 5%, it's sucking up a lot of power. So let's see what we can get out of this bad boy here. It's a sine bank, so it gives you 6 sine wave oscillators. And without making things too loud and annoying, let's just drop in. We're going to need an envelope. Let's just do a normal one here. And we're going to need something to trigger that envelope with. Oh, we're going to need a mixer, because if I only run that one oscillator, it'll get boring. Let's send a mixer into the outputs and the oscillator into mixer channel 1. And I need something to trigger that with. Let's make where is it? Yeah, I'm going to make an event sequencer and give him a clock to run off of. Clocks are under LFO. You can see I'm trying to organize it. My left channel here is sequencing and clocking, or I should say my left column, my first column. My second column is sound generation, which is the sine bank. The third column is the envelopes, and I might put the effects in there if I had any, which I don't have yet. And finally, I have mix down and output. So it just sort of keeps things semi-organized as I keep adding bits as we go. That's just a method I've come up with. You don't have to use that. You don't have to do anything anyway in modular that you don't want to. So I'm going to drive the tempo down here. Start it running. Oh, it says it's on. Here we go. Connect 4 pulses out to sequencer clock in. Now it's actually running. It's going to give it a hit at the beginning of the bar. You hear a very small beep. That's nice and minimal and boring for you. Give him some more. Great. So my release is almost so long, I'm at 2.3 seconds, it's almost overlapping itself. And if you look here, one of the sines is making noise. The other 6 are all muted. So what this sine bank is designed to do, I think one of its origins is probably to simulate organs, and by that I mean like church organs, Hammond organs, all that kind of thing. They are not exclusively made of sine waves, but they generally are, and the main other component of their sound would be a click when you play the note, and maybe a little bit of noise. We're going to stay away from that, at least for today, because we're not trying to make a Hammond organ sound or a church organ sound. We're just going to investigate what we can do with 6 sine waves. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to detune them. You can, this here will give you some detuning options. So, usually the oscillators show like this. You can have the tuning in a frequency, or you can have it on a note. Well, for whatever reason, the sine bank is only giving me ratios here, which is fine. And I can move in fractions of a ratio here, right? So now I have one an octave above the other. Let's do one an octave below the other. So already, let me turn it up a little bit. I think I can hear a bit of an organ note in that. The sequencing doesn't really match. maybe if we extended this. Let's try. No, that's not what we need. It's giving us multiple notes. We can tie those together. Again, it's going to go back to what we had before. If you listen closely, you can almost hear at the end of the note, there's a little almost like it's digitally downgraded a little bit. That's weird. I'm not sure why that would be, but I'm not going to investigate it too closely right now. Let's keep adding some more notes here. So there's 2 octaves above. That's giving us a fifth, so we're into a chord now rather than just unison notes. This one I'm going to self-tune. So I went up an octave and then 3 more semitones, so I've got a minor chord being played now. Not the most exciting sound in the world. Let's get a little bit weirder. So down here, you do hear an odd sound when I make a new module in the Nord Micro Modular. It resets the clock gen. It's a little bit annoying, but as long as you weren't programming in a live environment, it wouldn't be a problem. See that there? Let's make another one. So what I've done here is made some random generators. I'm going to patch these into the amplitude levels of the oscillators. Here, amplitude just means volume. You can see that they've already got a mount knob here, which is set at 100. So there's no amount on the random generators, but it should be adjusting them quite a lot. And the random generators are just creating random controlled data. In fact, I'm just going to make 6 of them here. There we go. So in my software, I just grabbed 3 and copied and pasted them. You can see this one is 297 and so is that one. But these are just, these numbers don't really mean anything. They're just showing that they're all going at different speeds. Let's patch this one in here. I'm just going to do it to all 6 of them. So now what you basically have here is a 6-note chord. Each of those notes is a sine wave. The sine wave is not processed in any way. And because of the random amplitude modulation, the levels of those notes are changing randomly over time. So did I get something that sounds like a church organ? No, I still didn't, but I've got a lot of interesting and pleasant motion going on here. And technically we're not really modulating the sound in the sense that we're not using a filter, which wouldn't work on sine waves, and we're not using a phaser or other audio rate effects. All we're doing here is randomly adjusting the volume level of each of those oscillators. And again, they're all being summed at the output here and sent to our envelope. So in the risk of becoming boring, let's add a little bit of sound here. So I said I put my random generators over by themselves. I guess they technically would make the most sense to be over here because, like the sequencer, they are generating control data in real time. The drum synth that I added is definitely an audio source, and in fact, I think I'm going to make Another one here. I'm saving myself a little bit of resources for the end. You can see we're already hitting almost 50% of our resources being used. And I'm gonna need this. Just programming a kick drum pattern for my kick drum. Connect the output to the gate. Connect the kick drum directly to my mixer. Let's give me a bit more tempo here. Trying to make some techno, but the sound is a bit annoying. That's better. Oops. Got away from me there. I like this one. Let's adjust it a bit though. Take some of the click out. And I'm going to reduce the frequency of the filter. Give me a duller sort of kick sound. If I was a better programmer at this point, I might do something with side chaining so that the sine bank is actually played when under the control of the kick drum, but I'm not going to get into that right at the moment. That's because I'm in my freestyle programming zone. Ooh, here's a nice one. I talk a lot about making generative or semi-random music. One of the ways I can do that is instead of using a controlled little sequencer like this one here, I can send the same clock signal to, this is called clocked pattern generator. And it has a bunch of patterns that have been programmed into it. I'm not going to start with 0 because that won't give me anything. But as long as I have some pattern in some bank and the 16 steps chosen here, it'll just give me a random sequence which I can send to this drum oscillator. Send the drum oscillator's output to the mixer. So I didn't know what pattern that was going to play. As you can tell, the pattern is repeating, and it's rather simplistic. If I wanted to, I could, rather than making a whole new random source, in fact, making 6 random generators is a bit wasteful. It would have been smarter to take a mixer, which is lower on CPU usage, and send 2 of the random mixers outputs to that mixer, and then get a 3rd random source. But I'm not going to stress about that today. What I was going to say was I could take one of the random outputs, send it to here, so that the pattern will constantly change. Adjust the tone a bit here. I like the punch. There we go. I don't think this will sound good, but you could try sending some of that random data to the pitch input. The random data is changing too slowly in that one. It'll just sound like the pitch is drifting. So I'm going to unpatch that. Wait, why won't let me do that? Come out of there. There we go. Double clicking on the patch and dragging it out removes it. That one was too fast, too slow for me. I guess the fastest one here, oh, that is the fastest one. Okay, forget it. I'm going to skip this for now. I don't need that part. Let me see what else we can do to make this little track more interesting. Oh, well, it's a bit processor intensive, but throwing the phaser in the mix might be a nice touch. Just reset itself again. fine tones to make it more interesting. So here's a phaser. Another one I like a lot is called Wave Wrapper. When I first got this, the concept of a wave wrapper wasn't very clear. What you basically do is you take a sine wave, which is generally considered boring, and you put the sine wave into the wave wrapper, which is what we're doing now. And then to wrap it, that means you sort of squish the sine wave, which makes it sound like this. Considered super pleasant. It's kind of a choice. Maybe it's because we have this once pretty sounding chord that we've now messed up. We could certainly adjust the amount of wrapping and then send it a random signal. It also sounds, at least to me, like the wrapping here is only affecting part of the signal chain, like part of the frequency response on the output of the sine wave. It's interesting, but it's not really what I was going for today, so I'm going to drop it. Let's try something a bit sweeter. The phaser won't be so harsh. Happy with this. Turn the percussion down a little. That's nicer. You know what I almost want to do? Yeah, I'm going to do it. The kick drum has to hit 4 times on a beat, but we only have 16 steps in the sequencer. I want the chord to play not at the start of every 4-bar phrase. So I'm going to make another event sequencer. Where did my first one come from? In here. Nope. I can never find the stuff I'm looking for. It's because I haven't used this for too long. Oh, of course, it's in Seek. So, there's our first event sequencer where he plays the chord on the beginning of every bar. Great, good for him. I'm going to unplug that trigger from there. I'm going to put another one at the start. But I want that chord to play less frequently. So what I'm going to do is make a clock divider. Again, this is something quite simple, very low on processing power. When I first got into modular, I was like, wow, a clock divider, that can do so much, and it's such a simple little circuit. In Eurorack, it would be super common. In non-modular sense, it would be rarer. Well, I don't even know why it started yet, but it did. Let's try this. So if you watch this little light, he's now moving much more slowly than this one at 1/4 of the speed. And he only is triggering on the first hit, so let's just reset the sequence here. In order to make sure he plays in time with the rest of the song, I have to connect the reset in to the sync out here. There we go. So now I only get him once every 4 bars, and I can extend his release time. That's what I was going for. Good. signals to the phaser. You can hear how the phaser adjusts the tone now. Trying to give them a lot of freedom just to change randomly. Rate up a little bit. Yeah, now we can hear the phaser doing odd things. That's pretty cool. So yeah, this is kind of what I was going for here. There's many other things we could do, or if we tuned these, let's mess around with the tuning on the oscillators, see what we get. I'm gonna go back to muting them again. So we just get that one note, which is now playing on the one. And his volume, of course, is still being randomly modulated, which is why he sounds so quiet, because he's never at full volume. I'm going to send these guys all back to where they were. Oops, wrong direction. And see if we can get some more subtle tuning issues going on here. I'm going to leave the last one for now. That's just the overall level amount. So again, he tunes by percentage, or I can tune the amount here. So by creating one which is 2 steps sharp and another which is 2 steps flat, my overall output should be something in tune. Although I guess with the random modulation, you're never going to get that exact amount. Bass power here. That's a good idea. First of all, I'm going to give an advantage to the bass sine wave by increasing his overall volume. And I'm going to reduce the amount of randomness that's inherent in his playback. Yeah, that seems to sound better, especially with the phaser on it. So let's give the other bass oscillator a bit more oomph. The randomness is still going to mess with them, but we can make it less random. There's the fifth. There's the note of the chord. So not quite as impressively bassy as I'd hoped. I'm going to take the randomness out of that one altogether. See what that gives me. Maybe we should drop it for this guy too. See what we get. A lot of the times the sound that you think you want to program in modular is not actually what you get when you twist the knobs. So the advantage of having this all digitally is I can hit Control-Z, put that patch back in to A-B it compared to what I did before. Still think I'm getting a better sound overall now. I'm liking it. Should be wearing better headphones for these demos. That's something I'll work on. But right now on my sound card, my audio signal is about as high as it can go without clipping. So yeah. Maybe this. Give it a little bit of a slower attack so it fades in instead. It's going to need a bit more than that. Yeah, I like that better. Notice how the display here changed to show that my attack is now a bit slower. What if I dial the sustain down a bit? Maybe that will help. Yeah. There we go. So yeah, again, I don't know what Troy's using his sign bank for, but in the Nord Modular world, I like having those six signs all in a box, ready to be tuned separately from each other, whether it's a chord or just a single unison note. You could do elements or harmonics of the overtones, all those kind of things, and with a lot of random wobbling of the amplitude levels, I can give it a sort of pulsing or glowing feeling that I think is quite pleasing. I know this isn't exactly what you'd call a techno track. It's more of just a loop, obviously, but you get the idea. And notice here that we're still at only 65.6%. So I could absolutely do things like, well, for example, let's do it right now. Let's take knob number 1. So the red virtual knob is now controllable by my hardware. And I'm going to make it so that when knob number 1 goes to the right, the kick drum fades out. So I'm going to call this group 1. And same, actually let's make all the drums fade out when we do that. Oops, that's the wrong group because it's a different color. Morph group 1. See, they're both red, just like knob 1 is red. I gotta hold the mic away from my mouth to do this, but what I did there was hold down control on my keyboard and then drag the knob back to 0 from its number. So again, the kick drum, when the red knob is to the left, the kick drum is on full, and the percussion is on 71 out of 128. So that's his current max level. And as I turn them to the right, here we go. This is how I would build a techno track by mapping various elements of the song to the volume levels in the mixer so that they fade out at certain portions. And then at the same time, I would also adjust other issues so that when the drums were faded out, for example, maybe the rate of the phaser goes up, if I think that sounds good. Let's do that now for demonstration purposes. So now when we fade the drums out, you can hear the phaser wobbling more. dial it back. And the phase is back to normal again. Yeah. So I'm going to save this one now. This is my patch for the day. Remember, my vow is to save everything we make in the streaming patch archive. So my first video on YouTube, I made 01 Proto Drum Machine. And then I sort of treated that as a rehearsal and then did a stream on Twitch, which is very similar. And I've saved that patch as drum and rand melody.patch because they weren't identical. I think I'm going to keep doing things simultaneously on both platforms. So today we're going to have a patch called 03, and this is going to be called Sine Cloud Techno. Just a boring name, but something that will remind me later what I was trying to do when I made this. Hit save. I'm going to save it in the synth just because I can. There we go. Save in synth. Those previous sounds are in there. I'm going to keep on stacking them up, and I'll back it all up later. And his name got shortened to SineCloud Tech, but we still got a general idea of what we're doing here. And yeah, that's the patch for today. I'm going to keep going. I still got a bit of time in my lunch break here. So I thought I'd dial up some older patches from back in the day and just show off some of the weird things the synths can do. I think this is the one I'm looking for. Nope. Name too many things the same title. Yeah. Okay. Here's a classic one. As you can see, the name of this patch is Zen Garden. This is one that was not made by me, but let's try to analyze it a bit. First of all, it's got mix left and mix right, which you unfortunately are not going to be able to hear right now. You're only hearing one channel of the output due to the limitations of my sound card. Someday we'll upgrade that, but not today. So what that means is if you really were hearing this in stereo, those little chimey tones would be probably semi-randomly, which is a word I'm going to be using a lot, fading back and forth between one channel of stereo and the other. So we've got chime 1 amp, chime 2 amp. Those must be the little tones that we're hearing. What if we drop some of the cables here for a second? Here's just the red cables, just the audio. I'm not sure if stream is supposed to be an actual, stream of water. I guess I'm hearing a bit of hiss in the background. Let's try this. Yeah. So again, I'm only trying to guess at what the programmer of this patch was trying to do. And when I got the synth, I downloaded a zillion patches off the internet, and most of them I don't know who made them. Someday I'll get into the community of the Nord Micro Modular and the names that I learned from it, which I now see appearing in Eurorack and other synthesis formats. But yeah, what the guy was doing here was trying to make a little virtual Zen Garden. This one is Zen Garden 3, so he's been working on it. So he made the chimes pan in stereo as if the wind was blowing. And I guess the stream here is not a Twitch stream, but in the old days, like an actual water stream. If you adjust the high pass, it can be a little bit bubblier or less bubbly. Now, does this literally sound like what you would hear if you took an audio recorder to a Zen garden and recorded some wind chimes? No, it's not. In fact, if the wind was actually blowing, it would blow on the microphone like, and it wouldn't be that pleasant to use as a recording anyway. But that's the way it goes. I wonder if any of these are mapped to knobs. No, nothing seems to be. So he didn't really make use of the 3-knob real-time modulation format. He's having these random pulse generators here, creating the random clocks for his self-generating system. But I still like it. I like it even better that I remembered where this, that there was a stream, a river, and he's got it set here to pan left to right, louder or quieter over time. So yeah, he made a little synthetic Zen garden, not photorealistic, not quote-unquote believable enough, but I think it's impressive that he had this idea. He started off, he was like, I want to make a little virtual river and some virtual wind chimes, and he got there. Good job, nameless guy. Let's find another one. Zen Garden, although I haven't used it in many live performances, I definitely have that saved in my 100 most usable presets that I used a lot in the synth. I do not know what most of these are. This one is made by me, so the name Well Designed is probably ironic. Let's just load it anyway. Okay, yeah, this is definitely a Frank-made piece of programming. I'm going to tweak the knobs a bit and see what sound changes we get. Yeah. Sounds like something I would think was cool. For one thing, I've got 3 phasers here, which seems like way overkill. The sound sources are actually percussion oscillators. Oh no, wait, these are slave oscillators. The top one is a percussion oscillator. Some filtering going on here, and then making a lot of use of phaser, especially with the fact that it's mapped to one of the knobs to adjust the sound. For example, you can see here this phaser has 4 peaks. This one has 3, and this one has 2. So that you can see the visual representation here. It's kind of covered up by the cables. There's the 3 there, and there's the 2 there. And at least I had the common sense to put a compressor after the mixer so that the peaks or the louder notes are not too overpoweringly loud. Things are also happening in stereo here, although again, without that setup, I can't really hear what that's doing. The patterns are random, and the random generated data is being quantized to 4 notes of the scale, C, E, A, B, which is producing the pitches that you're hearing. And it's right up at the max load, so this is about as much as I could do. But again, if I was rebuilding this, I might not have used 3 phasers, each of which uses 12% of your processing power. Funny thing about the Nord Micro Modular, while we're talking here, in the audio section, I think I would have expected to have more what I would think of as like guitar pedals. For example, there's a stereo chorus, which again you won't see me use much in these streams until I get a stereo output. It's very useful, but it's only chorus, and it's not very modulatable. This is going to crash the system. Since I created this, you can see the load went over 100%, so sound stopped coming out. The chorus just has detune and a mount, but you can't send a blue control signal to those knobs. You have to either mess with them in real time or just set them and forget them. So I'm not sure why they did that. It seems so much more, it would be so much more usable if they had a little amount input like this, like the phaser does. The phaser has 1 here, 2 here. It would just seem more practical, but they didn't give me that. That said, I ended up using chorus a hell of a lot, phaser a hell of a lot. What are some of the others? The other ones don't really match what you'd think of as guitar pedals. The wave wrapper, which we heard before, is also similar to overdrive and clip. Those are already forms of distortion. And then we also have digitizer and quantizer, which reduce the bit rate. I end up using those a ton. Back when I got this, the idea of a bit reducer in a guitar pedal wasn't really a popular concept, but today it's pretty normal. So yeah, I don't know how well-designed Mr. Well-Designed really is, but that's okay. It also depends where I was in my programming career when I made that. I don't know if I was in the first year of doing it, it might have seemed impressive to me at the time. I think this one is me. Tone canvas. This is a patch I used in many live performances. Just because it's sort of like pleasant, melodic, drifting, sounds. So similar to what we've seen before, we got oscillators over here, which are having their pitches quantized. We got a bunch of random generators, like you saw in the last patch. Here, the outputs of the oscillators, which include a percussion oscillator and a couple slave oscillators, are being manipulated by vocal filters, which give them their unusual tone here. Then they're being sent into envelopes. The envelopes go into the mixer. This mixer has a fixed filter across the whole thing. Probably I was running out of processing power and couldn't filter each of these with its own low-pass filter, so I just dropped one on the whole thing at the end. If I remove that filter, you probably get a buzzier sound. I probably just thought it would sort of clean things up a bit. Then I dropped from the filter into the... remember what I was saying about organization? The oscillators here all end up, whatever sounds they're making, in the mixer. Then the mixer goes through some processing before we hit the output. Number one, it gets a low-pass filter on the whole thing, so we're going low to high here. Next up, we get a random panner, which, again, you can't hear, but is going from left to right. And then finally, it's got a compressor. For a lot of patches I intended to use live, I would put a compressor at the end, just so nothing is too overwhelmingly loud. And you can see it doing its job here, or not as needed, as the gain reduction is modified. And then again, it's being sent in stereo to the two outputs, so it'll be fading from left to right in the pan zone. So yeah, Tone Canvas, another extensively used patch by me. Let's find a few more. Isn't this one cool? I think this one might be cool. Yep, the transmission. I think I need my keyboard floater. Where are you, little buddy? Tools, keyboard floater. The reason I know I need a keyboard floater is because I can see here that the guy who programmed it, who is KRC at Gehen dot something, I guess, the programmer, he named it, or he put his signature on it. He didn't bother to name every single thing here, although he does seem to have, see how he renamed, this is actually a filter, but he's renamed it multi-os because that's the job it's doing here. Anyway, we can see that there's a gate, meaning when you play any note on the keyboard, the gate will open and play the sound. So let's hear that sound now. Yeah, I always like this one. So there's really 3 layers going on here. One of them you can hear is the noise swoop. As you can see, that's probably being made over here. Another one is what he's created space signal and random pulse. To me, it sounds like a Morse code signal. Sorry for that. You can also see this little random light clicking whenever it plays. So, yeah. And then we have the actual tone itself, which he's named here Saw 1. He's got Saw 2 and the formant sub. So that's the note that we hear. We got the noise, we got the Morse code, and we got the note. Let's listen to them all again. So I guess it is actually tunable. The note I play on the keyboard could be low or high. But the Morse code and the noise will always just be the Morse code and the noise. So, yeah. Again, not made by me, made by that guy, KRC. But a cool patch, definitely. And I am running out of time, so I'm going to try and find something to go out on here. Here's another one. Definitely not made by me. But I remember getting this synth and loading up this preset and going, wow, it can do that? That's awesome. He's labeled it the African way. Without getting into the politics of that, he has sort of like random percussion sounds. He has something that to me could be like a camel. And those little individually plucked notes are kind of like thumb piano notes. He is using something which in the Nord Micro Modular is hard to implement, which is delay, because it doesn't have a RAM delay chip like you'd find in an echo pedal. The delays are incredibly short, so you can see here each one is just 2.65 milliseconds. If you stack them up, you can do some kind of, I think it's called Karplus strong synthesis, which is like to make string sounds. So I think that's going on in this patch somewhere. Let's look at the audio pass. Yeah. Anyway, it's just generating a bunch of odd tones, which I think the author may have intended to have an African flavor, however you want to interpret that. And he's right up at 99.7% of his load, so he's done as much as he can do to create this strange atmosphere. Even if this isn't musically something I want to create, or I don't think I've used this one into production, but as I said, when I heard this, I was like, wow, he can really create all these differing, unconnected, rhythmic or semi-rhythmic patterns that seem to fade in and out of being in time with each other. It's just very cool. So that's it. I gotta head back to work now. It's been nice streaming to you all. I really love taking the break from my day and setting up this little simplistic little setup. I mean, it looks complicated on the screen now, but the hardware I'm using really isn't complicated at all. And it's great to create something new or demonstrate a concept. And then also, if we have a bit of time left over, to poke around at other patches and just see the variety that is on offer here, the amount of strange universes you can build for yourself. And again, even if those are limited, they are impressive in their own way. I've just spotted it now. The author of this patch did tag it. His name is Roland Kuit. He made a ton of patches from when I first got the synth. So, yeah, hats off to him for the little universe he made here. And much more to come from the Nord Micro Modular and other Father Moose synth gear on this channel. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in wherever you're listening. Peace out.